Reputed godfather of organized crime here, Nicky Scarfo of Atlantic City.
Nicodemo, Little Nicky Scarfo, alleged boss of the mafia. Law enforcement officials are bracing for the next episode in a mob war that has left 18 men dead in the last 4 years.
Philip Michael Leonetti hailed from Philadelphia. Around the age of 5, his parents' marriage dissolved. He and his mother moved to 28 North Georgia Avenue in Atlantic City, where his grandparents, Philip and Catherine Scarfo, owned the building, and Leonetti and his mother took one of the apartments in the building. Over time, his mother Nancy's brother Nicky moved into an apartment in the building as well. Since Leonetti's father Pasquale was out of the picture, Nicky Scarfo would play an integral role in Leonetti's life and became a father figure to him. Even at a young age, the mafia surrounded Leonetti, as his uncle Nicky and their uncles and cousin were all members. As for Nicky Scarfo, he was inducted into the Philadelphia family in or about 1954 or 1955. In January 1962, Philadelphia boss Angelo Bruno ordered the murder of Dominic Reds Caruso, who had disrespected Bruno's consigliere, Giuseppe Rugnetta. As a result, Scarfo shot and stabbed Caruso with an ice pick, and after dropping his body off at a prearranged grave, Scarfo drove home and picked up 9-year-old Leonetti in the same truck he used to transport the body, believing that if witnesses tied the truck to the murder, the police wouldn't pull one over with a little kid in it, in the event that they wanted to look out for a truck fitting that description. So in essence, Scarfo made Leonetti an accessory to murder, but justified it by stating that he just killed a very bad man and then drove the truck to Philly to be destroyed. The following year, Scarfo stabbed a longshoreman to death in a fight over a booth at the Oregon Diner in South Philly. He would be convicted for that of involuntary manslaughter and served less than a year. While grooming his nephew in the ways of the life, Scarfo explained to him, "We don't talk about our life to anybody. We're different. We don't live by the same rules that everybody else does. Like the laws they have in this country. If somebody bothers us, we'll kill the guy ourselves." Nicky Scarfo took place in numerous murders and would teach his nephew the art of killing as well. According to Leonetti, Scarfo also explained to him if any work had to be done, like any murders or beatings, that we were there waiting to do them because we wanted to be made members. Obviously, he not only said this to his nephew, but to the other young associates around him too. In 1971, Scarfo went to prison for a civil contempt charge for refusing to answer questions at a state commission of investigation on organized crime in New Jersey. And he had Leonetti drive his mother, Leonetti's grandmother, up to see him at the prison. In addition, he began sending messages out to the street through Leonetti. In 1976, it was Leonetti's chance to prove himself. At the time, he had just graduated high school. A drug addict, Louis DeMarco, began robbing number and gambling spots that belonged to the Philadelphia family, specifically Chicky Narducci, and his fate was sealed when Angelo Bruno ordered his murder. Scarfo was given that order, and he had Leonetti and Vincent Falcone do the work. Falcone was an associate of Scarfo. After asking around, they tracked DeMarco to a coffee shop on Missouri Avenue in Atlantic City. And when DeMarco left, they followed him to the hotel that he was staying in. Leonetti and Falcone shot him 5 times in the parking lot. Around this time, during the late 70s, Nicky Scarfo created a concrete company that he named Scarf Inc., which he ran out of 28 North Georgia Avenue, another building his parents owned, a few doors down from where they lived. He made Leonetti the president of the company, and they used their influence in Atlantic City to win projects such as a sewer treatment plant, housing projects, a prison, a nuclear plant, and much bigger projects were the construction of the casinos. Things were going well for Leonetti and his uncle. Aside from the construction, they engaged in such rackets as gambling, loan sharking, extortion, etc. But in August of 1978, Leonetti was arrested. At the time, he was at a pool hall in Atlantic City with Scarfo when he was taken into custody. He was charged with murder and possession of a weapon. On July 3rd, 1977, the police discovered the body of Giuseppe Leva, who was a tailor. Leva was lying next to his 1970 Cadillac, and he'd been shot in the head 4 times. According to Leonetti, someone else killed Leva. Apparently, prior to Leva being killed, he filed a police report that Leonetti assaulted him outside of the Flamingo Motel. A person who broke up the fight, and who was also a witness, was Edwin H. Helfand, a municipal judge and part owner of the motel. On February 16, 1978, at 9 p.m., a slim-looking guy with a ski mask walked into the Flamingo and shot Helfand 5 times. But the reasoning behind Helfand's murder had to do with something else. Years ago, Scarfo had given him a bribe of around $6,000 to obtain a lenient sentence for Nick the Blade Virgilio, who instead received a sentence of 12 to 15 years. Nevertheless, the charges against Leonetti were ultimately dropped due to the state's star witness refusing to identify him as the shooter. Allegedly, the shooter was Virgilio, who was recently released from prison, and Scarfo was his getaway driver. It was around the same time that Leonetti acquired his nickname, Crazy Phil, given to him by a radio disc jockey. According to Leonetti, he hated the nickname, but Scarfo loved it and told him guys would pay money for a name like that. By 1979, Angelo Bruno began experiencing internal problems within his family. And there were several reasons, but one above the rest was certain members, specifically Bruno's consigliere, Antonio Capernegro, who became upset with the fact that Bruno allowed the Gambino family, the Cherry Hill Gambinos in particular, to engage in drug trafficking throughout New Jersey and Philadelphia in exchange for a cut of the profits, which was a direct contradiction to Bruno's no drug dealing policy. In a power play by the Genovese family, who were looking to control commission votes as well as outmaneuver the Gambino family, they told Capernegro that they sanctioned a hit on Bruno. Around this time, Nicky Scarfo ordered another murder that Leonetti would be a part of. Vincent Falcone, a cement contractor from Margate, New Jersey, and the same guy who participated in the Louis DeMarco hit, had bad-mouthed Scarfo for Lawrence and Chucky Molino while out drinking one night. Falcone called Scarfo crazy and also said he should be banned from the contracting business. He also jokingly stated that he wanted $500 a week just to hang around him. Naturally, this conversation was relayed to Scarfo, who in turn wanted to kill Falcone. On December 16, 1979, a small get-together took place at a beachfront bungalow in Margate. One of the invited guests was Falcone. Once inside the apartment, he noticed Nicky Scarfo was in the living room watching TV. Up to this point, Falcone had been avoiding Scarfo, and sensing his uneasiness, Leonetti suggested that they go make some drinks. When Falcone went to get ice out of the refrigerator, Leonetti shot him in the back of the head. As he collapsed to the floor, Scarfo ran over and leaned down next to Falcone's body to see if he was still alive, which he was. And Scarfo told Leonetti to shoot him again, and Leonetti shot him once again in the chest. Falcone's body was discovered stuffed in the trunk of his car on December 21st, 1979. Following the murder, on December 23rd, 1979, detectives arrested Scarfo, Leonetti, and Lawrence Molino, who were all released on bail on December 31st, 1979. The new year would bring big changes to the Bruno family. On March 21st, 1980, Angelo Bruno sat in the passenger seat of a car driven by John Stanford, who would be the future boss of the family. As they pulled up in front of Bruno's house at 934 Snyder Avenue in South Philly, Capernegro stepped out of the shadows with the sawed-off shotgun and fired into the back of Bruno's head, killing him instantly. Following Bruno's murder, his underboss, Phil Testa, sent his son Salvi with a message for Scarfo. He wanted Scarfo to go to New York and try to find out what was going on. It's possible Testa thought the hit came from New York. Consequently, Scarfo met with Bobby Manna, who was a Genovese captain at the time. But instead of meeting in New York, they met in a lawyer's office in Newark, New Jersey. And Scarfo learned the hit was not from New York, but carried out by Capernegro. The Genovese family who used Capernegro as a pawn sent for him and brutally murdered him. He was found in the trunk of a car in the South Bronx, beaten, stabbed, and shot 13 times. Phil Testa was made the boss of the family, and at the suggestion of the Genovese family, Nicky Scarfo became the consigliere. Leonetti and Scarfo were very close to the Molinos and the Testas. Leonetti got along good and was very close to Salvi Testa, who he felt that Phil Testa was schooling like Scarfo was schooling him. But he had a huge dislike for Chucky Molino's son Joey, who he described as a fresh kid and someone he thought was no good, and even thought about killing him. During an interview years later with Patrick Bet-David, Leonetti was showed a picture of the person who he referred to as Jose, a nickname he gave him, and he described him as the worst human being alive. Phil Leonetti became an official member of the Philadelphia family during a June 8, 1980 ceremony conducted by Phil Testa, whose son Salvi was inducted that same day. On October 2, 1980, a jury acquitted Scarfo, Leonetti, and Molino for the murder of Vincent Falcone. Nicky Scarfo told the reporters, "Thank God for the American jury system." After leaving his restaurant, Virgilio's, on 5 Bank Street on March 15, 1981, Phil Testa drove to 2117 West Porter Street, which was his house in South Philly. As he was opening up the door to his house, a planted nail bomb hidden on his porch detonated. Testa's lower body was mangled as a result. Miraculously, Testa was still alive, but died hours later at the hospital. Following Testa's death, the Genovese family once again anointed a new boss for Philadelphia, and that person was Nicky Scarfo. He chose Chucky Molino to be his underboss and Frank Monti as his consigliere. He also would make Leonetti and Salvi Testa captains in the family. Many events would take place following Scarfo taking over the family, like a war with Harry Riccobeni's crew and Salvi Testa exacting revenge on those involved in his father's murder. On August 16, 1983, Chucky Molino was arrested for drunk driving in Margate and attempted to bribe his way out of it with his watch and $485. Following month, Leonetti was also indicted on extortion charges related to city-owned casino Zone Land, which he ultimately would be acquitted of. The next treacherous event that took place was the murder of Salvi Testa on September 14, 1984. Chucky Molino was known to be a fall-down drunk, and due to his extreme drinking habit, Scarfo took him down from the underboss position, and in his place, he made Leonetti his number 2. At the time, Leonetti was 32 years old. About a year later, on November 3, 1986, Scarfo, Leonetti, and others were charged with racketeering, bookmaking, money laundering, and extortion, charges they would be acquitted of. Let me quickly remind everyone to hit the like button and also mention the super thanks icon found beneath this video for anyone who'd like to show appreciation for videos like this. On January 8, 1987, FBI agents arrested Nicky Scarfo at an Atlantic City airport after his plane just landed from Florida. His arrest involved the extortion of a land developer. Leonetti was arrested soon after and charged with 2 separate indictments in which he, Scarfo, and others were charged with racketeering, loan sharking, attempted murders, and murders. All of them were held without bail, but they would subsequently be acquitted again, but remained incarcerated to face other indictments. Later that same year, Scarfo was convicted for the extortion case and received a 14-year sentence. Their legal scorecard looked good, which included another acquittal on the Salvi Testa murder indictment. Nevertheless, they still faced a major racketeering indictment, and on that one, their luck would run out, as the jury found them guilty on November 19, 1988. Phil Leonetti was sentenced to 45 years, but by this point, he had already decided that he was going to cooperate with the government, and while in Otisville, a federal transfer center, he was in contact with the FBI, who eventually moved him out of the prison. Phil Leonetti would go on to be a witness in many trials, and for the most part, he was considered a good witness. As a reward for his cooperation, his sentencing judge reduced his 45-year sentence down to 6.5 years, and with time served, that left him with months before he would be released. Presently, Leonetti lives under an assumed name with a new identity, far from South Philadelphia and Atlantic City. And with the exception of a few interviews, he's led a low-profile life. Phil Leonetti possesses the smarts not to platform himself on YouTube.